Your brand as a creator is simpler than you think. Many creators, myself included, overcomplicate what their quote brand is, which leads to confusion about who are you trying to help, how you inconsistency in the look, feel, message, vibe, energy of what you do out in the world as your brand. And hinders your growth. It can prevent you from connecting authentically with your audience. It ultimately gets in the way of you becoming successful as a creator. So, hi, I'm Shawn Buttner, the host of the Meaningful Revolution podcast. And the last couple of months, I've been really working through this struggle of what is the brand that I'm working in as a creator. Because I have over 700 videos on YouTube and I don't have the results that I wanted. And I think I should have actually. You put in all that work, creating videos, doing podcasts in my example. But if you've ever written a book, you spend months and months researching, heads down, trying to get everything perfect, enlisting editors and publishers and all this kind of stuff. You do all this work to create the thing. And then nobody listens to it. Nobody watches it. Nobody connects with it. Nobody is talking about it. And it can be soul crushing, right? To get up and be like, I'm going to do my 758th YouTube video and nobody's going to watch it. And maybe you felt that way too. And so this YouTube thing, and as a certified high performance coach, it's not that, I've been able to produce at that value in spite of not getting the results that I was hoping for. And so the question is like, what happened, right? And I've been thinking about this question, and I had tried different angles or tactics or ways to create. And so it's been a long series of building skill, of trying things, of learning, and a lot of learning what's not actually working. When I first started out doing YouTube videos, I could barely talk to a camera. I still struggle with it. It can feel like a chore a lot of times, and it doesn't, when the content or topic is super interesting and I'm dialed in, it can be a very joyful, creative thing, but oftentimes it's a chore because every week I'm going to release a podcast episode, or I'm going to release a video, or I'm going to release a newsletter. And that cadence and that promise to deliver, which is a great way to start out and to get some experience, isn't always necessarily the thing that causes you to excel. So over the years, like I said, I've done 700 YouTube videos. I have over 130 podcast episodes, a couple of hundred newsletters that I've released every week to varying effect. And I realized that as my skill level has changed, as the focus of my coaching business has changed, as my life circumstance has changed, that there's all these ideas that are loosely glued together, or habits that I've developed that I haven't really thought of since they were enacted. And so it leads to a very unfocused, kind of schizophrenic brand. Going through the last couple of months and trying to figure out, okay, what are the different parts of my brand as a creator? How could this maybe help you guys as you're going out trying to think of your brands as a professional or as a creator? It's really important. What I have found out is a brand really is just a problem you solve for your audience. And so I think for the overall idea for the Meaningful Revolution or Shawn Buttner Coaching is that the brand aims to help creators thrive and succeed over time. So that's big message, the big idea, the big reason why I'm here, the thing that I want to help out in the world. And it's because I feel like creators like yourselves really can change the world as a ripple effect when we are all succeeding and we're all putting good out in the world and we're all solid, good people trying to leave the world a better place, right? Through our art, through our comedy, through our word, through our perspective. So that's the overall thing. So within that overarching thing, I have a podcast, a coaching business, a newsletter, and a community that I've been working on. And learned that, and this really important question for any of your shows or products or lines of creativity, what is the job of each of them? So, for instance, the job of the podcast is to explore creator topics that help people thrive and succeed. It's interviews of people that are out there in the world making it happen and trying to figure out behaviors and strategies and tools that are really helping them. And so this is more of a discovery and discussion platform. The newsletter is way more focused on giving you journaling prompts and directive action to take action towards your meaningful revolution, the things that you find purposeful, the things that you are out there trying to change in a significant way. And so it's a lot more action oriented and designed to give you momentum. And so that's been a big part of the rebrand effort thing that I've been doing the last. So making that more focused on taking action. The coaching is to help you succeed as a creator in the shortest amount of time possible using the framework that I know as high performance, certified high performance coaching to help identify personalize a plan to help you eliminate struggles, distractions, to meet your project deadlines, to manage your time better, these types of things that are very important in a creative environment. And there are the things that ultimately make the work suck or make the work miserable or burn you out, right? So the coaching helps you prevent burnout while you create over the long term. And the community, the idea is to build a network of like-minded people that can help each other out and help each other spread goodness out in the world. So it's more of a social outward focus. Just saying this out loud here on the podcast and sharing this ongoing conversation that I'm having and exploration that I'm having here is I feel very connected to it. I hope you hear it in my voice, but it also gives you a clear idea of what all of this is. Hey, and so that's really how I'm defining the different areas of my brand. And I'll share 5 things that you can think of as a professional creator to help you think through yours. And before we get into that, though, like understand too that brands should be simple and brands should feel like they're an extension of you. And sometimes they're going to be more complex for particular niches, for particular topics, for particular things that you're trying to do. And as in anything, as a software engineer, I learned this simplicity is generally more effective over the long term than a hugely complex thing. Right? So you might have a very complex topic. The trick and the art is to simplify it as much as possible while it's still keeping true to the topic, right? So you don't want to like Rube Goldberg anything, if you know what that is, which is to turn on a light switch, you have 23 steps of like dominoes falling and things catapulting and pulleys and levers, and just so a mechanical hand will flip a switch. Generally, like we build our brands like that a lot of times, I think, and don't do that. You just flip the switch, right? That's way more direct and straightforward. So, anyways, get off on a rant there. Here are 5 questions and things to think about in your brand as a professional or creator that will help you hopefully get the clarity that I found and give you that motivation, that sense of purpose, that sense of certainty, that motivation to get after it that we all should have in our careers. Right? And the very first thing in a brand or rebrand is that it should reflect who you are, your values, your personality, how you want to present yourself out in the world. And for me, this is probably the toughest thing and the thing I've resisted the most in my brand, being that I'm introverted. And if I could have my way, I would not have my face ever on the internet. I wouldn't have any social media. I would be working behind the scenes to get my message out. And I also know that if I want to have a huge impact out in the world, you have to be a leader. You have to put your face out there. You have to risk people coming down on you in a negative way in order to make things happen. So, like I said, I'm introverted, so I don't get energy from doing a lot of this. And so a lot of this last 7 years of learning is like, how do I manage my energy so I can serve the cause? And so hopefully that's reflected in things that I talk about and how I show up for all of this for y'all. What are the core messages that you believe in that maybe you learned from your parents or an important caregiver? Or what are the things that you're hoping to put out in the world? And how is that showing up in your brand? That's a very important question to have. And if you're feeling like that you don't connect with the things that you're creating and the things that you're doing, it's probably because your personality, your DNA, your humanity is not in the work enough. And so I'm cheering you on. I know it's hard. It's something that still haven't mastered. And sometimes I feel like I'm not the full. If we were friends, if we were close friends behind closed doors, I'm a different person than I am on the podcast, right? And I don't particularly like that, and I'm still working through that. And so I encourage you to figure that out too. If you're like, if not, then you just heard me rant for a little bit, and that's cool too, because hey, it's my show. Okay. So number one, your brand should reflect you. Number two about your brand is that it should solve a specific problem your audience has, right? This is my favorite definition of a brand is that it helps solve a particular problem. And so again, define your brand's job in the world. So the Meaningful Revolution brand is to help creators thrive and succeed so that their positivity has a ripple effect out in the world. Not the most perfect thing, and that's fine too. Like I said, this is a discussion, and I'll be fine tuning as we go forward. But that overarching goal sets up all the related activities towards podcast, the newsletter, the community, and everything after that. What are we trying to get after? And so, what what problem or problems are you known for solving? Right. And this could be like if you are in the office, what do people come to you to help solve? It could be that you're just super interested in a particular topic. And so you've done the research. So those types of questions can help you figure out like what is your brand and what particular thing do you solve. But yeah, the clarity of knowing that makes it so much easier to talk to particular things, specific examples of the things you're trying to solve, quite honestly. Okay. Brand should reflect you, number one. Number two, your brand should solve a particular problem. Three, your brand should be consistent, meaning in leadership, it's always interesting how consistent the message has to be and how consistent people need to hear it to get it, which has always fascinated me when you talk to, if you read biographies about presidents. I think George W. said this, and that particular thing in particular, was surprised at how often you had to repeat the message. And you look at any president that has been effective, you understand like slogans from political leaders because of that consistency. Right? It doesn't have to be Republican or Democratic, but so the things that you talk about, the values that you uphold and challenge your audience to get after, the look and feel, the way you show up, how often you show up, it's all part of that brand. And another way to put it too is how consistently are you putting your authentic self into your work too? Again, to go back to that, it should be a reflection of you. So like in your brand, either personal, professional, or creative, what are the consistent elements of it? What are the consistent messages? What are the consistent objectives or consistent problems that you're trying to solve? And again, I love this idea. I'm thinking about this idea for my brand right now, and I don't have a great answer. A lot of I chose to do this particular episode as a way to help me gather thoughts, but to also just show you how messy it can be sometimes. And that, and I do my job. It should get a little bit clearer and a little bit more organized as we go forward. And I hope you're with me on that journey. Yeah. Be consistent. Fourth, simplicity is key, meaning that the more you can simplify, clearer you'll be, the clearer your audience will be, the more directly, the more direct you'll be able to solve problems for your brand, right? You fulfill the brand job. In my business, it's been basically having all of the products that I've talked about in this episode, coaching, newsletter, community, podcast, trying to do a ton of different things with very little cohesion or little unifying reason for you to check out any of the others. The newsletter for the longest time was just a summary of the podcast, which is fine. Some people don't have time to listen to this, but there's no incentive for you to check out the newsletter if you were a regular podcast listener. And there's no reason for you to listen to a 30-minute or hour interview if it's just going to get summarized to you in an email. And like it's like trying to think of what was the point for each of the different things. Like, why didn't I just focus on the podcast or a newsletter or something? And part of it is I started the newsletter, you know, years and years ago, would do it weekly before I had a podcast, and it just stuck, right? There's part of my habits. And it didn't really think, oh, how can I incorporate this into how I've changed as a person? So simplifying the brand idea and specifically what each of these products does, again, helps me have a filter for what do I need to do when I sit down to write the newsletter for this particular episode. It's going to be a recap, right? Or an AI generated summary. It's going to be the questions that we talked about here. So you get, again, if you want any of the questions we're talking about today, you can sign up for the newsletter below here and you'll get that as part of the action steps to help forward your meaningful revolution. So make sure you check that out. And you'll get some other habits and ideas and research and things that I'm thinking of to make it a little bit more different, right? So if you're here to just discover these topics and think about them, and that's great. I'm so glad you're here for that. If you want to take more action, sign up for the newsletter and we will help you move forward. And you'll be aware of, or there's also updates on things going on, live trainings that I run from time to time. So check it out. Anyways, your brand should be simple. And then the final thing, and I think this is the most hopeful thing I've realized, is that your brand is alive. It's not something you define once and you're stuck to it forever. You can make pivots, you can make shifts, you can make adjustments, you can fail a lot, right? You can try a bunch of different things and ideas and not have them take hold. And you can always change. You always have that option to be like, hey, I love creating 5 YouTube lives a week, but it's slowly killing my soul. And so I should stop. And I've lived that life. Hey, everyone says you got to be talking about coaching all the time on your social medias. I did that every day for a couple of years. Again, not my thing. And cool. So there's so many other things to try. And so many ways to make the brand reflect you, to make your brand solve a particular problem and really narrow down on that through doing all that work, or to be consistent and simple, right? As you start focusing and thinking about these things and implementing these ideas into your brand, things are going to change and it's totally on it. So A simple brand can help you have clearer messaging, can help you have a stronger connection with your audience. It can help you increase your creative freedom. And ultimately, your brand should reflect yourself. It should solve a specific problem. It should be consistent. It should be simple. And it should be living, right? It will change over time. I think that's the greatest thing. So, if you love this episode, please be sure to share it with 2 or 3 friends. It really helps the show out. Again, if you want the questions that'll help you take action towards becoming more successful as a creator, make sure you sign up for the newsletter below. Otherwise, we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Meaningful Revolution podcast.